So we will go ahead and hopefully you are all seeing our screen here and ready to rock and roll. So first off, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where y'all are at. Thank you for taking the time out of your week to join us and talk some cybersecurity. We got a lot of good content lined up for you today. A lot of this is direct feedback from our partners, from you guys on this call, asking to see certain features, functions. Obviously, the threat landscape is changing very rapidly nowadays. So these new solutions that we come out with, the technology that we're using is essential to protecting our clients, to our internal operational efficiency. So as you all know, today's main topic is we're going to discuss SentinelOne's new featured product called PurpleAi. And we're going to do some deep diving into that, as well as a few other areas in the endpoint protection space that all kind of roll into one. Couple quick introductions first. My name is Matthew Fient. For any of you who I've not worked with, I am the product sales manager for our security portfolio here at Sherweb. I've been with the company just under 2 years at this point. I've been in the MSP channel for about the last 6 or 7 years. So I'm sure just as you all have experienced the ups and downs in the threat landscape, right? It's pretty evident that these calls and these products are really crucial to our day. With me today is the brains of the operation. We've got Ryan McCullough. He is the senior solutions engineer at SentinelOne. He's been with the SentinelOne team, I believe, just about 2 years, right, Ryan?
Yeah, a little over 2 years, probably about 2.5 years now. So
okay, but been in the cybersecurity IT space for the last 20 or so years, right? So Ryan brings a lot of expertise and experience to the table for us today. So we're going to pick his brain. We're going to have some fun and hopefully generate some good feedback and Q&A from y'all. This is our third webinar with the SentinelOne team since launching the partnership back in January. So again, we're really happy about that. Things have been going really well. And these conversations, again, they generate from what your feedback is to us. We've had a lot of partners that have been very excited to hear about PurpleAi. We've got a lot of partners, I think many of you on this call, that are already using some sort of EDR, XDR product, whether it be SentinelOne or some other third party. And that's why part of the call today is, if you go over to the next piece here, Ryan, we'll go through a quick agenda for you all. In addition to the PurpleAi, we want to spend a little time on the MDR portion, right? Managed detection and response. What is that? Many of you have made the jump and added that service on top of your EDR, XDR services. But we've had a lot of conversation with partners who are still looking to get a little bit more information on that. So that's what the first half of this call is going to be. Ryan and I are going to do a high-level dive into, well, what is MDR? How does that benefit you as an MSP and your clients? What does it actually look like on a day-to-day? We'll talk a little bit about SentinelOne's MDR themselves, Vigilance. Some of you may be familiar with that as well. But I won't spend too much time on those because I know we want to get to the nitty-gritty of the PurpleAi. We want to get our hands dirty. Ryan's going to take us through an interactive demo. And again, hopefully get some Q&A from you guys. If you do have questions, please feel free to throw them in the chat. If we can get to them throughout the conversation, we will. If not, we've got some time at the end that we'll dive into it. So unless you got anything else to add, Ryan, let's go ahead. Let's jump in. Let's talk some MDR.
Yeah. So why do you need MDR, right? Let's actually I'm kind of shoot this out to Matt. What I've seen is a lot of our partners and with Sherweb and others, most companies are, forming an MSP into an MSSP. So it's good to have just really staff augmentation. Vigilance really is more or less 24/7 staff augmentation for your team, and they're triaging and actually going through the threats. Why do you need it? Let's face it, right? Staffing issues, holidays, senior engineers are expensive, and having someone who's trained in the platform is pretty critical.
Yeah, and just to add, I want to go to the next one. We'll talk a little bit about the kind of the process of an MDR, right? A lot of our partners that I talk to are, for the most part, we're seeing they have some sort of EDR deployed, right? And then the next question always is, well, who on your team is is monitoring those alerts, right? Who's actually triaging events, who's going in and reading those logs, and then on the other hand, another scenario is what about out of office hours, weekends, right? Late nights. Obviously, as we know, cyber criminals, they don't sleep, right? There is no time frame of when we might get some sort of ransomware attack or malware installed, and so that's why the conversation of MDR has become a much more relevant one. At least conversations with our partners, when we're going through your security stack and seeing, well, where could you improve some operational efficiency? I think MDR is one of the top pieces of conversation, because when we go through this layer, and anybody on this call who is in that bubble right now of maybe you've been looking into some sort of MDR addition to your team, just think about the process here on the screen here, right? Collection, analysis, containment, recovery, right? That's fairly standard for when you have an EDR agent out. What does it first do? It's threat hunting, right? It's searching your network, it's searching the devices for any abnormalities, any signs of ransomware, malicious activity, right? And then what's it doing? Well, it's taking that data back to the agents, and somebody now has to do something with that data, right? This is where that challenge goes. And Ryan, you brought it up before, partners often tell me, well, we don't have a team that's qualified or specializes in reading these queries and going through these logs and going through that analysis process. And then what turns into that the resolution to that for a lot of our partners is, well, you're doing it, right? The CTO is in there doing it, and you've got much higher level executives that are doing projects that really they should be focused on other aspects, right? But somebody has to do it, and they have to make sure. So that's where this MDR, I see a lot of connections and a lot of partners looking to add that team to it, right? Because with an MDR, you've got a team of experts that are taking that data that your those agents are out collecting, and then now they're doing the analysis of it, right? They're containing it, they're isolating it, they're figuring out the severity of it, they're figuring out, right, what is the next step that needs to be taken. Then, of course, recovery, mitigation, remediation, right? So I think a lot of our partners that have made that switch and then been able to offload some of those duties elsewhere, it's gone a long way. Have you seen, Ryan, partners that you've worked with? What is one of these biggest challenges in this category? Would you say that is most consistent when you're talking EDR making the jump to
MDR? As far as challenges go, I mean, really it's staffing, right? And just the level of experience from the engineers. And on the flip side, I mean, I have some partners that actually use Vigilance. They basically kind of use it almost as like a shadow service in the background, where they're not really letting their customers know that Vigilance is there, which is an option, right? I mean, we're working directly with your staff, but a lot of it is really just upscaling the existing staff that you have, and covering 24/7. A lot of the smaller partners don't have 24/7 staff, and that's really critical. And when I do see escalations from Vigilance, I get typically pulled into Slack messages from our labs team or from our Vigilance team. It's holidays. It's always holidays. Like Friday the 13th, there was a bunch of threads, right? It tends to be, they know when people are limited staff, and ironically, a lot of the hacker groups know that the customers are being managed via partners, and they'll kind of follow their websites from almost a social engineering standpoint to see who they are and when they're offline, things like that, and they'll stage the attacks. So it's really critical having that 24/7 staffing. For me, or at least what I've seen, is that was probably the biggest issue, is just level of understanding of how to troubleshoot and really pull the telemetry data out of SentinelOne, and use that in order to educate the customer or remediate or fully remediate the problem. And the other is just staffing, right? It's literally just hours of office, right? So.
Yeah, well, and you brought up an interesting point there, Ryan, which I think is a topic we can focus on real quick. Is essentially cyber criminals exploiting our weaknesses, right? It's very easy to determine simple things like work hours, where demographics, geographically, where's a business located, like what are the norms and abnormalities of their day to day, and then of course they can exploit them, right? So that gets into the next slide, and we already kind of touched a little bit on it, but for you as an MSP, what are the benefits of an MDR, right? What does it mean when you actually add that service, right? Because obviously the name of the game nowadays is automation, right? Improving operational efficiency, but of course protecting your clients, right? Giving them the peace of mind that they're going to be able to go through their day to day. They're not going to be the next victim of ransomware and wake up and the next news report is focused around their organization, right? So I think a couple of the points you brought up, and we touched on a few of these. When I'm talking to our partners, a lot of times I'll bring in a partner who's been using something like Vigilance for a period of time and get their feedback and say, hey, what's changed in your day to day, right? Like, what have you been able to do? And I'll have partners list off all these other projects that they were working on that keep getting pushed back, right? They keep getting bumped down the priority list because they've got staff that are standard, that are set to monitor things like their threat services and their EDR and their XDR and, like you said, telemetry data, right? Like who's actually going through that and making sense of it, right? So these pieces here, I think it's important to keep in mind when you're building your security stack and you're trying to focus on what areas do we want covered, what boxes do we want checked. Peace of mind for your clients, of course, right? An MSP might sleep better at night for different reasons than your client does, right? An MSP, they want to wake up Saturday morning and not see any messages from their clients that there was a breach or a network intrusion or something suspicious, right? I was working with a partner a few weeks back where it was a case they didn't have MDR services, but their client brought something to them that they probably should have seen first, and it's what triggered the conversation of having an MDR. It was a weekend, so it was one of those situations where it's a toss up of what could have happened, but that alone is one of the things I see partners really, really leaning towards MDR to, filling in those blanks and saying, hey, look, client so-and-so, this is a 24/7, 365 service. And then, like you mentioned too, white label it, right? It's a service within your managed service agreement. So I think those are really interesting pieces. And when it comes to your overall money, your margins, your costs, this is something that you can factor in to your stack on a day-to-day with operational costs.
Yep, for a better lack of term, CYA, right? And yeah. I'll tell you, a little hidden secret here. If you have the Vigilance service and you're escalating tickets through Sherweb or even direct through SentinelOne, those tickets are typically prioritized if you have the Vigilance service and it is something malware related. They'll go a little bit deeper into the tickets and actually can help a little bit more, which is nice, right? So that peace of mind there. Of digging in case something happens, right? Because no one's 100% as a security vendor, so it's good to have that service in the back end.
And real quick too, one last thing, because it's all relevant. You mentioned CYA, and I won't spend too much time on it, but another topic that revolves right around this is cyber insurance, right? And we have a lot of partners that are looking for something like an MDR for that cyber insurance box being checked, right? That automatic, that remediation being in place ahead of time, the proactive piece. There's a lot of cyber insurance carriers that are very happy to see those boxes being checked. I'm not sure how many are requiring it yet. I think we're getting close to that. I think the industry is gearing towards more of that, but just something that comes up quite a bit as far as that box being checked.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk kind of quickly, just real quickly, to what is Vigilance, right? So what Vigilance gives your teams and really, extended through your customers is just that skills and knowledge gap and experience. We have senior level engineers, they're in the SentinelOne platform. They're fully trained in the SentinelOne platform. We also have automation on the back end, right? So, why we do have a finite number of engineers, and there's actually quite a few engineers on the Vigilance side, and our labs team, we have automated processes in the background that actually can triage and do things, and additional AI technology that basically looks at some of these threats and can make determinations to get live engineers on the phone and contact you directly. We talked about it for 24/7 peace of mind. The majority of Christmas, it seems like holidays, like major holidays, is when I see a big surge in the Vigilance service. And I've had partners directly tell me, hey, man, you did, covered my behind, right? Because I was, by myself, or I had to was getting called back in the office, and Vigilance was able to take care of it and remediate it, and or provide me the next steps that I needed to do to actually mitigate the damage. And then actions, not alerts. So many SOC engineers deal with what's called alert fatigue. The SentinelOne console is actually pretty good about, consolidating like threats so that you're not like going through thousands of events. But if you're really under attack, your customer's under attack, it can be difficult, especially for understaffed engineers, or if you just happen to be the CTO, the SOC engineer, and you're wearing multiple hats. It's going to be really difficult for you to go in depth into those threats, because just marking the threat as resolved is not the total picture of what actually happened, right? There's more to, what happened. Did someone click on a URL? Is there, educational? Was there data loss? Was there something else that went on besides that threat? And the vigilance team is going through and triaging and adding notes into the actual tickets, and or worst case, they're contacting you directly to let you know that, hey, there is additional follow-up actions. You need to go block this IP address. You need to go reset this user account, things like that, right? So it is going to up level and upscale your engineers, and it makes you look great, right? The MSP and partners we have that actually use Vigilance, they do have higher ratings and better retention with their customers, because it's a pass-through service, right? It makes it look like your team are expert and really know what they're doing, and I'm sure they do. But and there are times, and all of us, right? And they may not have time to know the in-depth threat hunting skills that it takes to go into a true threat and dig through the telemetry events. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we start talking about Purple as well. So comparing SOC experiences, what are the challenges there? And for the sake of time, we're going to have to kind of get through this. But long alert queues, requires thousands of investigation hours. It really leads to analyst burnout. I see a lot of that, right? The analysts get tired, or they get focused on one ticket, and they can't, maybe they have multiple systems getting breached or attacked. That's pretty common, right? And you want to minimize that. So once again, it's staff aug. It's a cheap option. Typically much cheaper than hiring, a senior level analyst onto your team to augment your staff. Complete system administration, customization, and configuration. So what we mean by that, if your individual customer doesn't want, or let's say you don't want to do the full remediation, you just want Vigilance to triage the ticket. There is an option for that. We can actually go in the console and configure that, depending on if you want rollback or don't want rollback. That actually is there, and we can work site by site for your individual customers, how you want to manage that. I would recommend you just let Vigilance take care of it, but we do have some partners or customers that have sensitive environments. They want to have a second or third pair of eyes looking at it. And then obviously we talked about this, not enough time to proactive threat hunting. It's not just rolling back the threat or remediating it. You really need to kind of look at the how did the threat happen, right? What are the other details around it? Is there other areas or things I need to do besides just the EDR client, right? There's obviously other products and network devices and 365 accounts, things like that. And then obviously talent shortage and need for advanced hunting skills for actively secure. So that's kind of goes without saying, right? There are a lot of us, probably a lot more of us now than there was obviously 10, even 20 years ago. But having someone who's an expert in the SentinelOne platform sometimes can be challenging.
Well, and Ryan, that goes back to the stage of the analysis, right? In that when we talk about, peace of mind for MSP, for a client, and time, they all tie together, right? Because depending on the level of expertise for your techs, for your engineers, reading through those logs and queries and understanding what that is and the actual process of analyzing it, right? That could take a lot longer, especially if it's a new environment, if it's a new attack. Whereas that's that benefit of, okay, well, the S1, the vigilance team, they're in there all day. That's all they do is breathe vigilance, right? So they're seeing the patterns, they're seeing the themes that are coming in, right? So
or the campaigns, right? Like a lot of the campaigns are I'd say spray and pray. A lot of them are targeted, right? But they typically, it's like industries, and as a partner, as someone who's offering services, typically you tend to take on the same industry type, whether it be, healthcare or educational, whatever. So the pros and cons of that is you're going to see a lot of your customers getting attacked with the same threats at the same time. They see everything from the lab's perspective, and they have access to obviously our labs and other research teams. So the in-depth knowledge they're going to bring is immeasurable, right? It's or invaluable, right? I should say. Yeah, I'm just trying to speed through this. Sorry, guys, because I want to get into Purple because we have a lot of slides for Purple. But and I won't kill you with slides. That's why I'm going to have a live demo, and I'm going to show you. Vigilance is a little more theoretical because it's on the back side of services. But how does it work? Basically, the threat is detected from an MDR service or from our platform. That could be the MDR, or it could actually even be our identity product. Vigilance will actually look at that. They'll triage it, do a deep dive. They'll look at, is there something else we need to do, or did the endpoint product actually remediate and do what it was supposed to do? If it does, then they just mark the ticket as, hey, we're good to go, add the notes, move on to the next ticket. If there is additional insights or information we need to relate to it, then at that point we would basically contact you. This slide says 30-minute response time. That's probably a legal thing. It's more around 7 minutes is what I see. On the partner side, it seems to be a little bit faster. For threats that have been remediated, it's a matter of seconds. A lot of that's automated. You'll see notes populated in there. It's probably a lot faster than a human could basically touch. But if it's something that actually needs attention, I've seen it's around 7 minutes on the partner side. I think there's another slide that actually calls it out. Once again, we only communicate with the partner. So that's important to know. Like if there is a next action, there could be instances where, if it was really bad, you needed to pull the customer in. I've seen some one-offs like that, but for the most part, we're going to be communicating directly to your team and educating and working with your team. So it's kind of like the man behind the curtain type thing, right? Or the woman, right? The man or woman behind the curtain. So real customer results, like we see thousands of threats. Like here on this slide, actually maybe a little outdated too, but about 149 billion file events typically customers see from the complete license that's actually ingesting data. Of those, 1.1 million are suspicious storylines that are analyzed by autonomous AI, and this is something we have in the back end that we're doing along with the labs and vigilance. And then of that, 21,000 potential threats detected by anonymous AI. So, that number is pretty staggering if you only have one or two engineers. And then I'm trying to triage that number. You hopefully don't see that number of threats in your customer environment. There's probably some other conversations we need to have about defense in depth. But what are we doing? Like, so we're preventing, and what we actually resolved, and then what's actually gets escalated. So as far as resolved vigilance, we see around 6,236 threats mitigated. Once again, it calls it out here. It's about 7.2 minute average response time on the mitigation of the threats. Of what's escalated, of that, 6,000 or so, 30 or so are basically end up getting escalated to the customer. And that typically is just something of, we don't have access to Office 365 to reset an account, or we're seeing, logins from, Russia or whatever, country of the day it's causing the attack. And we need, your team to basically jump in and reset something. There's some Gartner Peer insights there too. Like we finally found some peace during off hours and weekends because we know our endpoints are protected 24/7 vigilance teams. Absolutely, I hear that all the time from customers, right? It gives you a breather, right? Now, obviously, if we get engaged or something gets escalated, you're going to have someone on call. But it is nice having just another set of eyes doing 24/7.
Yeah, and one just on that review there, I imagine most of us on this webinar today have either experienced some sort of network intrusion, data breach, or cyber scare, or know somebody in the community that has, right? And you hear the stories of the reactive process that goes into some sort of ransomware attack, or a client being completely breached, and going through those steps when there's nothing in place. And you can feel that those chills of, wow, that the emotional roller coaster that you and your clients are experiencing, right? And I think examples like that, they go a long way as far as comfortability, credibility, proactive peace of mind for everybody from the top down. And I've had some partners that have told me some personal stories of what they've gone through, and it's eye opening, really is, because you still hear the stories every day, but until it happens to you or close to home, a lot of people are still in that mindset of, well, it's not going to happen to us, right? We're too small, or they don't need our information. So as these come out, I think the proactive mentality is much more consistent across the board.
Yep. It's not if, it's when, right?
Yeah.
And see it all the time. So let's talk a little bit about PurpleAi. This is a really hot topic. It's a passion of mine. Actually, on my team, I'm one of the SMEs who actually deals with Purple and talks about it quite a bit. I love this quote. Not gonna lie, I stole it from MIT, but generative AI can improve a highly skilled worker's performance by as much as 40% compared with workers who don't use it. In our testing, I have a couple slides on this too. We've seen up to 60 and 80% in the SOC by using Purple, because it's tuned for what we're specifically doing in our industry. But it is something, if you're not, most companies are looking at some type of AI program, LLM, et cetera. If you're not doing it, you're going to be left behind. And I encourage it. I even have obviously members, and I was a little skeptical at first too, of ChatGPT and other things because of false positives or false data. But the more you start using the tool, the more you get into it, the more that you will basically learn how to chat with the AI and start upscaling yourself and learning how to discern some of that information. SentinelOne has been an AI company for, since our existence, over 11 years. We've been in machine-based learnings built into our EDR-based client. But what we're introducing with Purple here is LLMs, or large language models, right? So generative AI trained models on large volumes of text to understand text inputs and generate human-like outputs. What does that really mean? Ask a question in plain English and get a response and have a conversation based on the data, or even support items that you're looking at. And I'll go through that a little bit. And I need to modify this slide and actually add that, because I see more on the partner side helping on from a support standpoint. I'll show you some examples here in a minute. But how can it help simplify workflows, better understanding of the threats with actual summaries? This is really important, because sometimes we know that there is a threat, we know there's data there, but we don't fully understand what it's doing. And to go through and have maybe a senior level SOC engineer correlate all those events, it takes time and a lot of money. Really, it's time, right? Because time equals money, especially with senior engineers. Up leveling analysts, right? AI is not, at least today, is not here to replace us. We're always going to need, some type of human interaction, whether it be the vigilance team or, your individual SOC engineers or security engineers that are actually analyzing data and making sense of what the AI is saying. But absolutely, we can do more with less is a good term, and that's how especially when you're talking to executives, AI is all about doing more with less and making faster decisions. Hopefully, everyone kind of understands threat hunting, right? So there's different types of hunting. What it would be threat actors, IOCs, anomaly based, and then taking that data and kind of analyzing it and making a hypothesis. Is this something I need to dig into? Do I need to interrogate the data? It's kind of the next step. How do I identify if it is a threat, and then how do I mitigate it, and then how do I convert that into a particular rule that if it is something like an IOC that we're seeing that's being targeted, that's maybe doing a lot of like EDR bypass or evasion. And I'm speaking from experience here. Like, I see a lot of it now. The threat actors have gotten really smart when they see us or the other guys. They used to be, back in the day, they would just kick out, right? They saw SentinelOne, they would just exit. But now they're pivoting, right? They'll look for systems that are under management and they'll do lateral movement. And then it's living off the land attacks, because they don't want to just mass deploy malware. It's an easy way to get caught, right? And then they'll stay persistent in that environment, and you typically sell off those systems that they've compromised to someone who actually does do the ransomware attack. So being able to threat hunt and understand what's actually in your environment, or is there still threat actors there, is super critical. And it's a hard skill, right? It's something that's actually learned typically over several years. And at a different type of skill set versus someone who's just managing a security tool. So with PurpleAi, like, what are we trying to do? We want to empower every analyst to be able to ask these basic questions. Power queries can be difficult. There are some basic ones, and I'll show you in the demo that you could figure out. You could get it out. There's GitHub repositories out there of SentinelOne threat hunting queries. But if I asked you, show me all systems that are doing port scanning. This was a real world question that someone asked, a partner asked of us. And he went through like 4 or 5 SEs trying to figure out that power query, and even some RI guys. And I was just like, hey, let's go ask Purple. And I had the answer in 30 seconds, right? So it just goes to show you, no matter how educated or, great you are on the platform, even if you're an expert writing power queries, the AI is going to be faster. And most of the time it's going to be probably more accurate because there's the human factor there. We're missing a comma or missing capitalization or whatever.
Well, and Ryan, I'll add on that same note. I think it's kind of funny because, as we are using PurpleAi internally as well, right? Where it's available to our partners, so we're going through it all internally. And I've gone through all the trainings for PurpleAi, and so I've really got my hands in there. And I by no means am qualified engineer to go in and read these logs and these queries and understand them. However, it's kind of comical how confident PurpleAi has made me feel going in with it because of that language translation, right? I'm able to go in and basically translate what these reports and these logs and this data is fairly simple. And then, just like you mentioned there, it brings me back to anyone who's seen the movie Limitless, right? They talk about the NZT pill. If you're already smart, this makes you smarter. I think of PurpleAi as a very similar mentality, because for the analysts that are in there, the engineers that are in there that are already functioning and reading through this data, that PurpleAi added speed and that expedition kind of, right? It can expedite products. I think of how that can go into their day-to-day and the operational efficiency and the windows of time that gets cut out. And I think that's where there's a huge value add to be taken advantage of.
Yep. Return on investment is large. I actually created some calculators, and the return on investment of Purple, it typically will, in a larger SOC, it'll pay for itself in 6 months. It's about 1,000% ROI return on investment, because even if you have the most senior level engineers that are doing threat hunting, it's going to make them faster because, typically the senior level engineers are expensive. It also can help with staffing because if you're hiring junior level engineers or, kids straight out of college, I call them kids, I'm old now, but people straight out of college or whomever, right? You could use the tool to help educate them on how to use the platform, basic support functions, and get educated, and then it upscales them very quickly into more of a senior level engineer, or at least getting the data for the senior level engineer so it's qualified. I worked in the support center for years for another AV company. And that was the biggest thing. I was actually one of the tier 3 engineers, was getting the proper data and the logs that I needed up front to qualify and move the tickets faster. Because ultimately, the longer you sit on something, the more it kind of festers and people get upset, right? So the faster we can get that things, and plus there's a cost there, right? And the more I sit in front of a screen and looking through logs or trying to do someone else's job that they should have done before it escalated to me, that's a waste of money. It's a waste of time. And it's just not efficient.
It's domino effect. No.
Yeah, it's a domino effect, exactly, and it scales, right? And then you get behind on other work, right? We all kind of run across that, right? So, we're in a world today where it seems like everyone's kind of downsizing. They want you to do more and take on more jobs. I've experienced that firsthand working for a couple startups. Working 6 different jobs. So you may be the person who has 6 different hats. Use the automation. That's what AI is for, right? Is to help us do more with less and to make our daily lives better, right? So yes, hackers are using it for bad reasons, but for that exact reason is why we should embrace the technology and use it for good reasons. What have we seen, right? And these are literally from customers that were part of the early adopters program and some enterprise-based customers using PurpleAi. 80% faster doing threat hunting, right? That literally, like example I gave before. I mean, I have countless examples of people want me to help them write a particular threat hunting query or look at events. I'm not an IR person. I'm not certified IR. We have a team for that. But there are times I have to help as the solutions engineer, right? So even me, it helps me actually get them the information that they need. I use it too. Like even if they don't have Purple, I'll go ask questions to Purple, get the answers, and go send it to the customer, which is pretty cool, right? It saves me a ton of time. easier at threat hunting, like 28% improvement, and then 78% of surveyed early adopters found that the notebook feature was pretty helpful, which I'll go through in a second. So for the skeptics of, I could do it faster than AI, this is literally for those of you maybe familiar or not, we have something that's called Threat Ops Challenge. And it's kind of a capture the flag type event we do. And by the way, if, those are interested, we can run these for you. We do with Sherweb as well. They're very productive, especially for getting new customers. But this is one that we actually ran. It was AI versus, humans. And what we did is we grouped people who, acknowledge they were newbies, either into security or into threat hunting, versus senior level engineers, people who'd been doing it for years or were familiar with the platform. And hands down, actually the person who won had never even used the SentinelOne platform before when they used Purple. And if you look at the score, this is a time based and how many questions they got through versus the individual engineer who had been an expert. 4 times faster, like literally 4 times faster. He finished 7th, and this was a guy who literally is a certified IR engineer with SentinelOne. So you can do more, right? And honestly, if this gentleman obviously would have had Purple, obviously he probably would have been in first place, right? But who knows, right? Like, and it's kind of funny. Like, the Threat Up Challenge is pretty cool. Like, we run them. I think we actually ran one. I like the last one I ran. There was somebody who never touched the SentinelOne platform, who actually won as well, which is pretty cool.
Well, we did, for any of you on the call who joined us for any of our Security and Azure roadshows this past year, we did the Threat Ops Challenge for S1 at each one of those shows. Now, we didn't have the PurpleAi edition yet; it wasn't available yet. But just like you said, Ryan, it was very interesting to see the top 5 and ask, okay, well, have you ever used SentinelOne? Have you ever used a platform like this, right? And I'd love to go back and see them do it with the PurpleAi edition and see what are the results in comparison. That'd be very, very intriguing.
Absolutely. For that matter, the typical to do a full Threat Ops Challenge is 3 hours, what we're supposed to allot. The Purple one is 1 hour. So there you go, right? So it's a classic example of someone threat hunting versus AI doing it for you. And we're going to have to kind of blow through some of these slides when I get to the actual demo. So lightning fast queries, hunting, quick starts, notebooks. I'll walk through all this in the demo. Query, in-depth queries, along with OCFS data. I've actually even translated some other security vendors' threat hunting queries with Purple, which is technically not a feature, but it seems like it works for a lot of them if they subscribe to the OCSFF. 1 year data retention compared to competitors, like 7 to 90 days with deep visibility and that retention there. We could hunt across last year's worth of data, and then efficiency, ease of use. What are some of the principles here, right? Being helpful, reduce the customer's burden, corrective, deliver accurate, up-to-date responses, responsiveness, enable the SOC at the pace of the conversation or of the threat that's actually attacking you, right? And or maybe be faster than the threat actor who's actually in the environment, because we're typically 1 or 2 steps behind. It's helping us get to that, catch up to what they're actually doing a little quicker. Safety, respect, trust, geo, and security boundaries. There is, obviously, we have data privacy. Everything's maintained within SentinelOne in the same way that we maintain the data. We do, we're, SOC compliant or SOC 2 compliant or whatever you want to say, right? There's multiple compliances out there, but we actually do adhere to that. The data is stored directly within SentinelOne as well, and the data is segmented, so we're not cross using the data, and we're not sharing the data. By the way, we're not taking your queries or using that to train our AI. We have engineers that do that. Transparent. So show the work and sources and cost of the value. Adaptive, give better use feedback. Comprehensive, right? Familiar way to get all work done. I'm blowing through these slides because I want to get to the demo, sorry, and make sure I have enough time to go through the demo. But, how is it working today? We're going to expand this out very, very shortly to additional sources, and we already have been. But, basically someone asked a question in Purple. Our framework, be that LLM, is querying the knowledge base and the security data lake on the back end of SentinelOne to formulate a question. So depending on what your question is, if I'm asking something like, show me all supported operating or supported versions of agents for legacy clients, for instance, that's going to query the knowledge base and collect data. If I'm asking a question around who are current threat actors that SentinelOne's seeing, that's going through the knowledge base, but it's also going through our labs, and it's a live direct connection, to the knowledge base and our labs of this is current information, right? So, you could go ask ChatGPT that. It's going to be completely different than the data source that we're exposing internally to our labs and our knowledge bases. And then ultimately the data lake, right? Your data is important, and collecting that data, it's not just CYA, it's there to use, right? Like it's there for threat hunting. You may not be doing it today. I talked to a lot of partners that have just kind of had it there just in case. They wanted, they wanted complete. They wanted to make sure if something happened, they could engage support, Sherweb or SentinelOne to help. But really, your team could be doing a lot of that hunting, right? And Purple's going to allow you to do that. So let me go to the demo. Whereas it didn't log me out here. Let's see. Refresh to make sure. So what does Purple look like? I'm using the new Security Operations Center interface. If for those who don't know, this is the new interface for SentinelOne. The legacy interface will be there, and Purple does work in the legacy interface, or probably for the next year it'll be around. But you have the concept of a notebook. So if you are familiar with like OpenAI or ChatGPT, very similar concept. I'm going to ask a question, get a response back. So if I do something as simple as, show me all connections to Russia, and you can misspell this too. It is an LLM. I will say, like with predictive text engines, kind of the more data or the more context you provide, it's predictive text. It's trying to judge what's going to come next. Like, I think they want this type of data. In this case, this is I'll say, depending on your level of expertise, it could be an easy one. We're looking at geo regions. But if I've never touched the SentinelOne platform, or I've never really done threat hunting myself, it went ahead and wrote what is a power query for me. And where a lot of engineers fail or have problems is, the ORs or the case sensitivity, things like that. You're going to get different results, and you may miss events, as in where this very clearly interpreted what I was looking for and then gave me the results. That's just one part of it, though, right? The next part is it's given me a summary of, where I'm connecting to. In this case, we'll call Russia bad. I don't know. I'm not going to judge if you do business. I mean, we don't in the US, but if you happen to have business with them, it's on you. But, it could be any threat actor country, right? It's going to give you a quick summary of the actual event results here, which is important, right? Because there could be thousands of events of telemetry data that you're digging through in the actual threat hunting. It's going to be hard. This is valuable, all right? Being able to click in the event itself and the AI give you a summary of why this event's important. I just randomly clicked on an event, by the way. This may be or may not be information, but it's kind of a good point, right? Like if this is something pertinent that I want to look at or need to investigate, in this case, anything going outbound to a Russian-based or external to the US for me is going to be bad. So I'm probably going to go ahead and actually perform an action, treat it as a threat or treat it as suspicious. I may even go as far as disconnecting it from the network. So, very quickly I can take it. Or if I'm the junior level analyst, I could copy and paste this, put it in the actual ticket that I'm working, and then escalate it up. If it's something that I want to keep, we have the concept of actually notebooks. So in this case, I could save this particular notebook. Like you can see here, I have a bunch of other notebooks and things that I've been working on over the past year or so that I've had access to Purple that's pertinent to me, or maybe I want to share. So if it was something that was pertinent, I could share that notebook with a senior level engineer and give them that URL or give them access to that in order to kind of keep the case moving at speed. That was kind of a simple question, but there are others like, as a matter of fact, we have a catalog essentially, right? So I just minimize this. We do have a catalog. So that's kind of the thing. Like if you start first playing with like ChatGPT, like, and I use ChatGPT 4.0 quite a bit, just for other reasons like competitor information and stuff, but or help writing documents, right? But at first it's a little difficult to know like what questions to ask, or it's almost like baby language, or you're asking kind of simple questions. You're like, this is cool. I'm kind of getting good data back. But the more you keep working with it, you realize how to kind of structure the questions more like prompt engineering. So what we've done is we've created a catalog that you can actually use to kind of have some starting points, right? Or at least know how to formulate some questions to get started with the platform. Here's a good example, right? So here's a particular threat actor group that we've exposed that we see a lot of activity from. You may be an expert in writing queries, but I challenge you to write a query like this, right? And how fast could you write this query? Plus, how fast can you pull the current or active threat and hashes from our labs, right? Odds are you're not going to be able to do that unless you're using another tool or have like multiple threat feeds. And even then, this would be a very very complex question to actually write. We're going through putting current hashes that we're seeing in the labs. We're seeing the current IP addresses that we're seeing from our labs team. And lo and behold, I actually have some details here, right? So I could drill into these once again. Here's some behaviorals. It's actually showing me like, this is probably, obviously this is bad. I have people communicating to IP addresses or hashes, and boom, right off the bat, right? I see that Mimi Cats is there as a source process that's being executed. It's going to give me the summary of it. This is an absolute boom, I'm infected, right? Or I have an indicator of compromise. I'm going to quarantine the machine, going ahead and treat this as a threat. If I treat this as a threat, for instance, that's going to, if anyone else in the environment is seeing that in my SentinelOne, little world, they're also going to treat it as a threat, and I'll start seeing more alerts. And on the plus side, if you happen to have vigilance at the back end, they'll start helping you triage those events as well. And since it is a conversation, right, this is like interactive. So it's going to give you some follow-up suggestions, right? Like show me network connections, initiated by Starfleet Redshirt. I could click that. I could also say like, show me the top 10 machines. It's basically a conversation back and forth. So based on the original results or the first question that I ask, I can pivot and go deeper into the details and keep continuing with the conversation. Now, what I use this for all the time, once again, is like support type issues. I don't have everything memorized in the SentinelOne console, especially like in the marketplace is a good example, right? I always have to go back and look for and hunt for the support articles. And for any of you that have used probably any type of search engine on anybody's support page, you know that it can be difficult to find articles quickly. And that's not my job. Partially my job is to do support, but not really, right? I'm not part of the support team. It just happens, right? And if you probably have engineers that are getting pulled into tickets or things, troubleshooting SentinelOne, that's taking away from them working on actual security events and other tasks that probably would be more important than basic troubleshooting. So I use it all the time. People ask me, I probably have some examples in here, like literally questions or paragraphs customers have sent me. I just cut and paste it into Purple, get a response. I always double check it, obviously, because it is AI. There is a concept of what's called hallucinations in AI. We're pretty good because we've trained the models, and it is only accessible to like the SentinelOne data. So the odds of hallucinations are pretty rare. If you saw something that was bad, we have a little thumbs up, thumbs down for. And when you thumbs down it, that actually opens JIRA tickets directly with our engineering teams to analyze like why did this question go wrong. The nice thing about this though is we're fact checking it right here, right? We're providing the sources. So in this case, it's showing me the actual KB article for the offline help to be able to pivot and very quickly jump over into the actual KB article. So if I wanted to send my customer the article, it's here. I could also say, hey, write me a summary of this, right? That's geared towards being a novice, and it did the dirty work, right? So you wouldn't think this takes a long time, but I know from personal experience, when people ask me about marketplace integrations, that's at least a 30-minute email, right? That's me going through, trying to find the article, trying to add the steps, doing stuff. I'm not saying it's a complete waste of time. You're helping your customer, but you could be doing more things, right? So that's why it's a good idea to go ahead and actually, let the AI do it for you. Several examples here, though, right, of different things you can do. From mobile, I have other examples. I even have personal examples of even support tickets that I was troubleshooting, getting information back and forth directly with my support team. They weren't giving the information that I needed. I went to another team looking for help with like JAMP configurations with mobile. Wasn't getting the data I needed. I was on day 2 of this, trying to help the customer, and I was like, man, I'm an idiot. Why don't I just use Purple? And within 30 seconds, I had the answer I was looking for. Right. So time is money. Use the AI, use it to your advantage. Not all AI is bad. In this case, it's helping you do more with less and actually upscaling you and making you quicker. That was pretty quick. So questions, Matthew, I think other things you want me to kind of cover around Purple. One more thing, sorry. So there is some new features we actually added. So if you've seen this demo before, we actually have some new things that we actually added where even if you're not threat hunting or looking within the Purple GUI, we have contextualized or add AI data to the events in the threat hunting window. So that was kind of an overwhelming response we got during the initial launches, especially from the senior level, like IR guys and gals, where, hey, I don't want to have to go ask a question. Can you just help me show or analyze the event within the threat hunting window? And we've actually added that recently. So if I click on this particular event, I'm just randomly clicking on something, right? The AI will basically give an analysis of the event in this search window. So, don't think you have to go, ask a question like ChatGPT or whatever, right? You literally can just go into the threat hunting especially if you're more experienced and senior, and get level. My family, I manage my family's machines. We all do, most of us at SentinelOne. So we don't have a commercial based product, or endpoint based product, but retail product, excuse me. We don't have a retail product. We manage a lot of systems. My brother is also a senior level security engineer. And we were digging into some things, and this was super helpful, right? I got stuck, he got stuck. We loaded Purple, clicked on the actual events he was seeing in his lab environment, and it analyzed and gave us very quick details of actually what was going on. So we knew how to triage it and mark it either as a false positive or mark it as something we needed to actually go in and dig in a little bit deeper. A lot of me talking there, Matthew. Sorry, I was trying to be quick. We're running out of time. We got about 8 minutes.
This was good stuff. I mean, this is exactly, I know this is what everyone really wanted to see, is the interactive, the nitty gritty of how does it work, right? I mean, AI is a topic of conversation in almost every event we go to now, every webinar, anything cybersecurity related. We're talking about AI and how can it better improve our day to day, better protect us. PurpleAi, I talk to a lot of our partners when we're going through this. I say, well, are you using Copilot, right? Most of us probably have dabbled with Copilot. It's integrated into a lot of our day to day. And I say, there's the similarity. PurpleAi is your Copilot for your SentinelOne environment. But again, the uniqueness of what PurpleAi is doing, as you mentioned, because it's strictly SentinelOne's knowledge base. I think that's a very unique piece that a lot of our partners have found very intriguing, because it's constant data that's not coming in from externally, right? External environments aren't infiltrating that data. So I think that's something that partners have had some positive feedback on. I know we got a few more minutes here. So if anyone has questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. But if not, we can high level, a couple topics I know that partners have brought up to me, at least on some calls, and maybe pick your brain, Ryan, on them, around vigilance, around things like PurpleAi, and like how do they all complement each other, right? And that's always that is a question I get when partners are trying to decide. We all have vendor fatigue and product fatigue, right? There's so many different things out there working for us, and the challenge is always, well, which ones do I need? Which ones do I not? How many products are doing the same thing and overlapping? But the PurpleAi being a very complementary product, how would you see or respond to that? If an MSP, if they have a concern of, do we need both, right? What is the complementary aspect there?
Yeah, and they absolutely can be complementary, right? Depending on the level of your team. I think a lot of people, or at least a lot of partners I've seen, use vigilance as just kind of really staff augmentation. They're too busy to deal with a lot of the mundane tickets. So it just helps speed up the process and make their team a little more agile to work on more in-depth tickets that probably need additional understanding of what's going on. Like, is the threat actor still here? Are there multiple threat actors? Is what we usually see, right? Someone who's still sitting in the shadows, living off the land attacks, things like that. So, vigilance is great for just reducing that busy work. And then Purple allows you to get deeper into actual threat hunting and really even upscale your engineers. It could be training too. Like, if you have engineers on your team that are new into security, or maybe they've been in security a long time, and someone's hitting you up with questions about CMMC compliance, right? Very difficult topic. There's a lot to it. That's a good example of using AI. And then pivoting, is my environment compliant, right? Like, is there any indicators or things that are problems that I've seen with, like, related to CMMC compliance? I see a lot of it for support purposes too. Even if you have like a good threat hunting team and they're qualified, get rid of those I call them kind of easy. I wouldn't say easy questions, but there is things like, deploying agents with RMM tools and other things, right? It comes up a lot. We see like, creating dashboards, maybe something too, like, upscaling your engineers. People don't realize, but within our platform, there is dashboards. We do technically have a library now that actually helps, right? If you start ingesting this data, how do I visualize, contextualize the data? Purple's going to help you do that and give you information, but it could be something as, hey, help me write a dashboard, right? Or help me write an API query, especially if you're a partner, right? It happens all the time. We see a lot of people transferring and moving from partner to partner. I see this a lot, right? Like, I need to export the API passphrases because we're going to get cut off from the console or whatever, right? So, I could do it and tell it to write me in a particular language, and it'll do it, and has access to even the offline or some of the offline APIs. Yes, you could do some of this in ChatGPT with programming, but ChatGPT doesn't have access to our deep knowledge base and our offline API queries. So pretty cool. I actually had an example too where a partner was wanting me to use an obscure, they were needing help with an obscure language that I'd never coded in before. It was like a kind of archaic Java language. And I literally just said, hey, instead of PowerShell, I used the other language and actually typed it up and wrote it, which is pretty cool. So, once again, it's all about doing more with less and speeding you up. You're going to be more efficient if you're using Purple and really AI tools in general, right? It's one of those things where, a lot of us on the security side, especially engineers, been around for a long time. We've been a little apprehensive, but it's not going anywhere. Don't get left behind. You need to implement some type of program and embrace it to make yourself better, and you will over time. You'll see the more you start using the tool, and especially as we expose Purple to more partners. That first week or so, they're like, yeah, this is cool. I'm doing some hunts, I found some things. But usually that second and third week, they're like, oh my God, like I've been trying to write a query to do this or perform this action for months, and you literally helped me do it. Like, you saved me, right? Makes it look good in front of your boss too, right?
That's right. Well, and we've got another minute or two here, but with that being said too, as far as you did that last piece, makes you look good credibility wise. That's another use case that I've seen a lot of partners very interested in, is with the notebook feature, right? Well, now their analysts, their techs, they can essentially they can track their work, their data. They can then translate that into reports. They can put it into QBRs is something that you can take that data and partners can utilize that, right? So depending on your client's intel and what they want to be involved in, but obviously AI, endless possibilities. I go back the limitless NZT analogy. The smarter you are, the more you use it, the better it is, the better it gets, right? And that's just where we're all at. So I know we're just about at the top of the hour, so we'll wrap things up. Appreciate everybody for joining us today. If you are interested in doing a deeper dive, getting some information on PurpleAi, reach out to myself, our team, your account manager. I work with all of the account managers. Feel free to reach out to the team. We'll get the right people on the call, right resources in place, whether it's Vigilance, PurpleAi, whatever you want to discuss. It is live. It is running. So, whoever wants to get their hands on, let's do it. Let's have a conversation and see what the best fit is, right? This is also one of those things where one team may use it in different ways than another team, and it might be the perfect fit for one, and it's a slightly different for another. So again, we're happy to have those conversations. Ryan, appreciate you jumping on with us today and giving us all the insight. And I know there's lots more that you could discuss and chat with, and I'm sure we'll pick your brain more often and continue to do so. But we really appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, and appreciate Sherweb. Like, it's, for those on the WebEx, just know Sherweb is actually first with Purple as far as the disties go. So we're really proud they're a trusted partner, and you're in good hands with Sherweb. So appreciate everything you guys do.
Perfect. Well, it looks like we're just about out of time. So thanks for joining, everybody. This will be recorded and on our knowledge network as well. So if anyone missed it, or you want some colleagues to watch it, feel free to access it there as well. Thanks, everybody.